experiencing a little bit of illness this week, and not sure if everyone is here this morning. I think we've got enough to make a quorum, but since we don't have anyone here to present a bill yet, we'll just stand at ease for just a few minutes. Okay, we'll call the committee back to business. We do have Senator Beck here to present Senate Bill 1555, and it's also the same as Senator Roberts' 1539. So, Senator Beck, if you wouldn't mind just to present both the bills at the same time, since they're identical, you don't have to speak twice.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and member of the committee. It's an honor and a privilege to serve the 1st Senate District. I'm Doug Beck, and today I want to present you with the Act establishes the Missouri Guaranteed Inclusive Voluntary Exceptional Service, or as we like to call it, MoGives program, within the Missouri Department of the National Guard, and creates the MoGives Fund to support it. SB 1555 and 1533, is it? 39, since I am presenting both bills, 39. Members who choose to become living organ donors to receive living donor medical orders, ensuring they remain on paid military status throughout their living donation process. That period includes required medical testing, the donation surgery, and any medically necessary recovery time. Under the program, approved members remain in paid status, are not required to use accrued sick or vacation leave, and continue to receive applicable pay, housing allowance, and per diem during the donation period. This legislation is needed because of living organ donation often requires weeks of recovery, and many National Guard members rely primarily on civilian employment for income. Without paid leave, donors, these members may be forced to choose between financial stability and saving a life. SB 1555 and 1539 fills a gap where federal or employer-based protections do not consistently apply to Guard members who are not on active duty. Ultimately, SB 1555 protects Missouri National Guard members who step forward to save lives, ensuring they can do so without risking their pay, benefits, or job security. I may be able to answer some of your questions. I know there's some experts on this bill. This bill has changed somewhat since we introduced it. And the reason it's changed is because in the Missouri National Guard, you have the federal and state where they come together, and we wanted this to be on the state side. So we worked with National Guard and other folks here, and it's been real pleasure to work with everybody. And Senator Roberts is on board. So if you look at both both of those bills. They're identical. There is another small little change that'll happen somewhere at some point. But as you know, this bill is already moving too in other forms. So just hoping to try to have this hearing here today, and I think there's somebody here today that actually did this, and I think it's an impressive story, and this is where the origin of this bill came from. So without that, if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them, but there's also folks here that can answer those questions.
Well, thank you for that presentation. We're going to take just a quick second. We have a member here. We're going to take the roll so we can establish the quorum. So, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senators Moon, here. Schnelting, here. Nicola, here. Beck,
here.
The quorum is established.
Thank you, Senator. I had a visit from Mark Osmak a couple of months ago now, I think, and what a fantastic story. And he's here. So he's
definitely here.
Okay, very good. I didn't see him till he offered the salute. So, any questions for the senator? Seeing none. Any witnesses in support of 1559 or 1530, 1555 or 1539? Come on up. And just as a reminder to all, if you would please complete a witness form and leave that at the table. Mr. Osmak?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Good morning. Good to see you again, sir. Chair Moon, Vice Chair Schnelting, I know he just had to step out, but my name is Mark Osmak. As you can tell by my very intimidating physique, I was in the Army for quite some time. You don't have to laugh that much at that. My former boss is actually here, Major General Blaylock, just to my right, your left, with NAUGUS, National Guard Association of the United States. So the impetus of this bill is as follows. So I am currently in the Army Reserve, which is federal, and I know this gets confusing, not to this committee, but to others. Unless called upon by the president, the National Guard is a state entity. So the long and short of it is, about a year ago, I was updating Christmas addresses, and my buddy that I met in Afghanistan in 2011 was moving. I said, where are you moving to? And he said to Walter Reed. As a fellow artilleryman, I knew there was no artillery at Walter Reed Hospital. I said, so what's going on? And he said, well, I have stage 4 renal failure. I'll skip to the end. It turns out we were a closer match than siblings. So our blood and urine were a great match. Both taste terrible. Insert joke here. But we found out we're a closer match than siblings. And no kidding, overnight in May of last year, I got 16 ounces lighter and he got 16 ounces heavier. The kidney is continuing to work for him, and it was a wonderful process. The way that it typically works is the donor, the living donor, falls under the recipient's insurance. In this case, it was TRICARE. So that covered my transportation. It also covered the transportation of someone to help me, because you do need physical help for the first few days. So it paid for my uncle to fly out to DC from St. Louis to help me get in and out of bed, et cetera, and basic daily tasks. But from this experience, what I learned is that if your employer X for a company or organization, does not have a living donor program, you are left with one of two options. One, you drain all of your personal or medical leave to get to zero, and then you could be eligible for living donor leave, or there is simply none allowed, and it is all out of pocket. Now, to be clear, the procedure itself, the testing, the surgery, the medicine, the recovery, all that is covered. But what is not covered is your lost wages. Now, I realize that asking anyone or any entity to cover that is too much. But I thought, well, while I was laying in bed at Walter Reed, I thought, well, what if there's a gap that could be addressed? And I think that gap is in the Missouri Air and Army National Guard. So simply stated, what this bill does is it does not penalize an individual who wants to give an organ and is approved and is in good standing with the Missouri Army or Air Force National Guard to do so, but under the context of this is now your new mission. Your new mission is to donate and recover. So it is not incurring any additional costs, but all it is doing is keeping that service member barely afloat. It's not a raise, it's not a bonus, it's just barely afloat while they are recovering from that surgical procedure. Today in Missouri, there are approximately 1,700 people waiting for a kidney and approximately 115 awaiting a liver. Everything I've learned has come from this process. So I think, like a lot of people here, we probably have signed the back of our driver's license that we wish to be a donor upon our death. As wonderful as that is, only about 1 to 2% of those who do pass away are eligible to give an organ because it has to be done in a hospital setting. So if you think of a drug overdose or of a car accident or someone passes away at home, they typically will not be allowed to donate their organs just because of the wear and tear and just the breakdown that happens after that. So in a hospital, if you are on life support, you can do it. But all this does is bridge a gap. I think that's something that's worth pursuing all the way. I understand that 1,700 Missourians and 115 waiting for a liver is a tall order. But the goal is, and this is one big step, is towards no Missourian waiting for a kidney. And I think this committee and this chamber and this building can help accomplish that. So I will pause there for any questions.
Thank you for that testimony, Mr. Osmak. You mentioned is one of the alternatives to living donor leave. Explain that and how that would fit a portion of the gap, if you will.
Absolutely, great question. So if you are a traditional guardsman or woman, you drill 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, just like the commercials say. But through that process, you do not earn leave. So if you are an active duty soldier, so if you're AGR, which is Active Guard Reserve, they are the people who make someone like me who shows up 1 week in a month able to do our job. This does not apply to you. They do earn leave. So they earn 30 days of vacation a year. But if you're a traditional guardsman or woman, you do not unless you are deployed. So if you're deployed to Qatar or Kuwait, you are earning annual leave. What the GIVES program is intended to do is if you do have leave, let's say when I came back from the deployment with General Blaylock and you do have leave saved, this will allow you not to drain your annual leave so that while you are donating an organ. So this is a separate bucket, if you will, so that it is not draining what resources the service member has. It is rather drawing from another bucket, essentially. And so if you do have, whether it's 1 day or 1 year of leave saved, you will not have to draw upon that. There's also a provision in here to prevent double dipping. So let's say I work for Company X, and Company X does have a living donor program, such as the one that I work for does. But it requires that I drain all of my annual and medical leave before I'm able to access that living organ leave. This would give a service member the opportunity to say, well, I can't really get anything from my employer either because I'd have to drain everything or it's not offered. But if I act under the GIVES program, a separate block, I am able to donate an organ for up to and recover for up to 6 weeks, which is less than what is needed for a kidney, without penalizing myself financially. Does that make sense? So it's a separate bucket of leave so that you're not penalized for donating an organ.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the senator?
Thank you for your testimony, and just amazing what you did for your buddy there too. I really appreciate this, and I spent time in the reserves too. So how would it work if you don't have leave, you're in the reserves and you don't have the 30-day leave?
So that's what
I think you said something about that would be like active duty or something.
So that's what the GIVES program would establish.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the 30 days, if you do have 30 days of annual leave, this is intended so that you don't have to touch it,
Right.
because then it's hardly a vacation when you're keeping track of your wounds and things like that. So this is just a separate thing so that if you do have vacation or leave, that it does not have to be touched. It is there, and this is a separate program that will put you on order so that you do not have to draw down from what you do have.
Right.
Think of it in terms of like savings. You don't have to touch your savings in order to live for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, but if you don't have any leave, like I had no leave
Correct.
to me. Okay.
And then this would be applicable to you.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, are there any other witnesses in favor? Come on up.
As my former colleague and member of the 35th Infantry Division said, I am Major General retired Will Blaylock. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri National Guard Association. And I don't have much more to say than he did other than to say that our association absolutely supports this. We see it as a way not only to help our service members but also help our community. And if we can do both at the same time, that's a win. So we support it.
Thank you, General. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Any others in favor of Senate Bills 1539 or 1555? Any in opposition? For information,
Good morning, Nick Humphrey with the Missouri National Guard. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Beck for being such a huge supporter of your Missouri National Guard. We had our National Guard General Counsel and 2 JAGs work on this, so I feel really good about the language. We did get this language added to our department priority bill, which was House Bill 2593, which was third read and passed out of the House yesterday, 144-2, so it's headed your way. And it's a great military bipartisan bill, and we support this. Thanks.
Thank you for all your help.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Any others for, against, or information? Seeing none, Senator, you're going to close this out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that ends the hearing for Senate Bills 1539 and 1555. Now we'll go to Senator Bean with Senate Bill 1581.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Senator Jason Bean, representing 25th District, here to present for your consideration Senate Bill 1581. Senate Bill 1581, also known as the Veteran Mental Health Innovation Act, establishes a grant program through the Department of Health and Senior Services to support FDA overseeing clinical trials using ibogaine for the treatment of opioid use disorder, co-occurring substance use disorder, and other neurological or mental health conditions. This bill allows Missouri-based research institutions that meet strict medical and clinical requirements to apply for funding, providing they also secure matching private funds and partner with a multi-state consortium that has already submitted an investigational new drug application to the FDA and requested a breakthrough therapy designation. Senate Bill 1581 creates the ibogaine Study Fund to support this research and ensures unused funds do not revert to general revenue. It also establishes the ibogaine Intellectual Property Fund so that any revenue generated from discoveries made during these trials is directed toward programs that assist veterans and other at-risk populations in Missouri. Finally, if ibogaine receives FDA approval, the bill requires it to be prescribed only by licensed physicians and administered in hospitals or licensed healthcare facilities under medical supervision. To qualify for grant funding, research institutions must, 1, be located in Missouri, have proven experience treating neurological diseases and substance dependence, have neurological and cardiac intensive care capabilities, partner with a multi-state consortium that also has submitted an investigational new drug application to the FDA and requested breakthrough therapy designation, and provide dollar-for-dollar matching funds from a non-state resources. Why is this bill important? Missouri continues to face serious challenges relating to opioid addiction and veteran mental health. Many veterans struggle with trauma-related conditions alongside substance use disorders. While existing treatments such as methadone and Suboxone have helped many individuals, relapse rates remain high, and some patients do not respond well to traditional therapies. Senate Bill 1581 positions Missouri to explore a new research pathway while maintaining the highest levels of safety and oversight. It protects taxpayers by requiring private matching funds. It protects patients by limiting activity to FDA-regulated clinical trials. It protects the state's financial interest by securing intellectual property rights that benefits Missouri. Most importantly, this bill creates a pathway for potentially life-saving treatments while maintaining strict medical oversight and FDA compliance. In closing, Senate Bill 1581 supports innovation, protects patient safety, leverages private investments, and prioritizes care for veterans and at-risk Missourians. It does not bypass federal law. It works within the FDA framework. It does not promote recreational use. It supports regulated clinical research. For those reasons, I respectfully ask you to support Senate Bill 1581. Thank you, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Since you're a fellow farmer, Senator, do you know if our climate would support a Tyrannanthe iboga tree in Missouri?
Say that again.
I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but it's that shrub, I guess. It probably wouldn't because it's probably a more arid environment.
Right, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
On the growing word, I don't know.
I didn't know if that was in the scope of the studies or not. But with there are at least 5 other states who are looking at this and probably doing some studies on it. Will a restriction to Missouri limit our capability of collaborating with those other states?
You know what? There's probably some people who can answer that coming up better than
Okay.
I can. I know states like Texas, I believe, has passed this as well. So like I said, I think there's some people coming up behind me
Good.
that probably answer that better than I
Okay.
can. So.
Well, hopefully they'll have that on the radar. Any other questions for the senator? Thank you. Any witnesses in favor of Senate Bill 1581? Please come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Peter Kinder, here to speak on behalf of Senate Bill 1581 about a word I had no knowledge of between 6 months and a year ago, and I have gone to school on it with the help of a lot of good friends. I was invited to the national meeting to focus on ibogaine in November in Aspen, and what a weekend that was. I renewed my acquaintance and friendship with former governor of Texas, Rick Perry, who served in the first Trump administration as energy secretary. We became friends when we were both in office. And he is a national spokesman for ibogaine research and helped push through a bill in the state of Texas last year. And I said, how in the world did you get it done in 1 year? Usually this is a 2, 3, if not 5-year education process for all comers. And he said, yeah, and we even introduced the bill late. But their bill, after which this one is modeled, appropriated $50 million for the state of Texas to kickstart the clinical trials to be matched by dollar for dollar, $50 million private fundraising, which they did. And they became the first state to go down this road in law. We're trying to model that here with a request for $30 million to be matched dollar for dollar, $30 million in private fundraising. And I can just tell you that it was very moving to be at that meeting, to be among war fighters, among our Navy SEALs who've had multiple combat tours and came back suffering terribly from PTSD, and every existing treatment had failed them. These guys were enormous, great Americans who had sacrificed for our country and came back and were suffering terribly from PTSD, to the point one guy said, my wife came in and I was sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of whiskey and a gun. And she said, I'm going to have to take the kids and leave you. Or we heard from the big NFL lineman, whose name somewhat one of the other witnesses can supply, suffering from TBI, traumatic brain injury, who, like many of the Navy SEALs, was suicidal. And every other treatment had failed him. He was self-medicating with alcohol and maybe other drugs. And he tried ibogaine, and it changed his life. He says saved his life. There were first responders there suffering from PTSD who had similar testimonies. So that right now they're going to Mexico to get this treatment. And we're just trying to open the door to properly conducted scientific clinical trials that can begin to either demonstrate the promise of this pathway to treatment or falsify it. Both are open to us. There is one study already in the can from Stanford University that is very promising. I would also commend to you a documentary on Netflix that came out in November. It quickly became the most watched documentary on Netflix, and it features Navy SEALs and their struggles after combat. It is a very heavy, you might say it's a downer. The title of the documentary is In Waves and War. In Waves and War. And it features most prominently Navy SEAL Marcus Capone, who is a friend of mine, and testifying to the promise of ibogaine and how it's, he says, saved his life. So there are people here who know far more about this subject than I, including some who've served our country in combat, and I want to allow plenty of time for them to testify, but that's my overview.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Kinder. Are there other questions? Seeing none. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
up to testify. just leave it at the table if you will. Thank you. And any other witnesses in favor of Senate Bill 1581, please come up.
Thank you, sir. Good day. My name is Walter Disney. You heard that right. It's Walt Disney. I am from the great state of Missouri. I grew up in Kansas City. I went into the military and served in the SEAL teams for 13 years. I was an instructor, a sniper, and a medic. And now I am a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist in the state of Missouri. That's an LCMFT. In my 15 years of doing this, I've worked with over 600 veterans, first responders, in treating their PTSD. And I have seen nothing as effectual as this medicine. I have myself taken on the treatment. Unfortunately, we have to go outside this country to get it. The Stanford study, formerly cited, shows 34 Navy SEALs, functional MRIs, neuroplasticity, reduction in anxiety, depression, addictions, recovery of physical function, cognitive capacity, clearing what most people call brain fog. I have found this to be the singular way of catapulting people through what typically is years, if not decades, of therapy. I've had 20 clients go through it right now. As part of our program, I run a nonprofit called Camp David. One of our members, 7-year Marine, 21-year law enforcement, went through this treatment and said it has saved his life. If I told you his story off record, you would be amazed that he's even alive. His spouse is going through it. This is a cutting-edge medicine. We have valid data, not only through the Nolan Williams at Stanford study, to show us that it is safe. The one mitigating circumstance is a prolonged QT interval in the PQRST sine wave of the heart. That can be mitigated through EKG, which monitored EKG and IV. When I observed the treatment before doing it myself, I overwatched. They are overwatched by 4 nurses per 6 people, which is a fine ratio, as well as having a trained cardiologist in the room with a full crash cart. I was trained as a paramedic as well, so I knew what I was looking at and what they were doing. And this can be easily mitigated, hence the appropriate studies. This is a powerful medicine. It is not to be casually ingested, but it has one of the most profound healing rates that you can't see with any other modality that I'm aware of right now. And when we expand the purview to look at opioid treatment, in one treatment, 84% of the people have recovery from their opioid addiction. One treatment. Tell that to insurance companies.
May I ask you the length of the treatment? How long does the treatment take?
Yes, I'll describe that for you. If I may finish this statement, please, Senator. So after 2 treatments, 96% of the people with opioid addiction are recovered. The treatment consists of this, and depending on the clinic, there's a couple of different clinics. One are a little more medicinal, and the others have a little more spiritual application. That being that they do sweat lodges and meditation more in the latter than the former. The more clinical is a person is gone through a screening at least a month out. They do preparation with intention, understanding what the process will be like. They arrive on a Friday. By 8 p.m. on a Friday evening, they take the medicine, and it is regulated much like any of the allopathic medicines that we utilize. You asked, Senator, can we grow it in Missouri? No, we can't grow it in Missouri. It does come from Western Central Africa. However, it can be synthesized accurately and safely.
Did I pronounce the name of the shrub correctly?
It's fine.
Okay, good.
Iboga is the most important part of that.
Okay, very good.
I believe terebinth is just Latin for tree. So on Saturday or Friday night, by 8 p.m., the medicine is ingested, retired to the room, laying on a mattress, quiet room, music in the background, very low, nonverbal. It plays an important part of the process. Prior to the ingestion, there is an IV established, and once a person lays down, the EKG leads are put on. Each person has an EKG lead. The medicine takes effect somewhere between 8 and 16 hours. There is a lot of emesis. Do I need to elaborate? Good. The nurses are hustling all night long. Once it starts, usually everybody starts the emesis.
Are they conscious? Time?
There is a state of euphoria. There is then a state of submission into the journey. Mm-hmm. A mask is put on, so an eye mask, like a sleeping mask,
right,
which causes one to pay attention to what's going on inside, which is where everything's happening in this case.
So even with the EKG leads, they're not restrained, and they can set up and
correct
and
go to the bathroom,
right,
as the need be,
and they vomit in,
roll to your left or right, and
okay,
yes. But it's on a mattress on the ground for safety's sake.
Gotcha.
And that's through all the clinics that I've seen,
right,
which are 3 different ones. So that lasts through the night, and in the morning they're attended by nurses the whole time. Very clinical and yet very homey. The woodwork felt a lot like this, and that has something to do with it too. It needs to be a comfortable, not sterile place. And then the next morning, if people can get up, they're attended to make sure they can ambulate safely. And when they can, they're able to ingest food, sustenance, and then start journaling and writing what they see. In these journeys, most of the time, we don't call them trips. In these journeys, moving inward, it's oftentimes that people go back to traumatic events and what in psychotherapy I would call reparentification. It's where we as an adult, and you will see this in the documentary In Waves and War, which is a quote from Odysseus, you will see that some people journey back to a younger self or a place where they were traumatized, overwhelmed, and able from a current, more mature state, more empowered state, help that younger self move to a healthier state and resolution, whether it's powerlessness, safety, et cetera, et cetera. I do this very same thing in a different way through another therapeutic modality called internal family systems. There's another modality, ADP, that does the same thing, reparentification. But there is something about that combined with the medicine that creates a neuroplasticity, a regeneration, and a fixed healing that others just don't happen. So the next morning, sustenance, getting up, recording what you experienced as best you can, and usually there are groups to process. And that is where a lot of one person's story can help another person realize what they engaged and then recall it and get healing from it. It's called catharsis. Additionally, in that journey to get to that younger self, there are often very dark elements that one has to take on. This is very important. We grow with stress. We can't heal with rainbows and unicorns. So it's guided that when you move into this, if you choose between rainbows and unicorns versus the dark door with the evil person, go meet your adversary. And that's what brings the healing. So Saturday morning, there's a recovery, sustenance, processing, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the clinics also utilize another medicine called 5-MeO-DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's often referred to bufo or toad. It comes from the Hawaiian toad, the venom, and it is utilized as well in those clinics down there. Again, I find that this be a medicine not just for healing our veterans, and I think it's fitting to put those who have put so much on the line at the front of the line. And I believe it holds powerful potential for our society.
Ready for a few questions?
Please.
Okay. It seems like you're at the tip of the spear on this, at least in our state. I asked a question before about the other states that are moving in the same direction. If we have restrictions to Missouri, will that impair our ability to collaborate with other states?
Could you please define restrictions to Missouri? I'm not sure exactly what you're conceiving.
Well, as I was listening to the presentation, the bill sponsor may chime in here. I was under the impression that it had limitations in Missouri. Did I misread that?
I think so.
Okay.
We're just going to go along with FDA guidelines. We'll be ready to implement the program as soon as FDA moves forward with that. Does that make sense? We're just trying to be.
It does. Yeah, thank you. And in addition,
If I may, sir.
Yes.
So my understanding is, as I've studied this and worked in this arena for a while, that there's a consortium, and I think this is appropriate because the different states are collecting the data. The restriction that I understand exists is that this is first and foremost for Missouri veterans.
that may have been where I thought it was a restriction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
Yes. Following treatment with the successes that have been seen, have we any information that shows how long that lasts? Are there any reverting back to where they were before the treatments?
Yes, if you revert to the Stanford Nolan Williams study, you will see that there's protracted results that sustain. I believe they have data out to a year now with, I haven't reviewed it since I slept, so I'm not collecting the data in my head. But I believe the data results in more than a year of sustained recovery from the symptomology, the suicidality, anxiety, depression, even physiological pain.
And I see there may be some from the medical community here too, but I want to ask the question of you as well as the others, if you can't answer. Are you getting any pushback from Big Pharma or any medical communities on this?
So, me personally, no. Is there going to be? I honestly, the only con that I've heard was from the AMA representative stating they wanted FDA approval, which is exactly what the bill is trying to create, is a pathway to FDA approval. Once it gets approved, quite honestly, it will actually become an industry for the state, for the country. Not only in production, but administration.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes,
Any other questions? Senator DeCola.
Did you say you were a Navy SEAL?
I was.
Well, thank you so much for your service, and everybody else in here that has served. Thank you so much for your service. When I enlisted in the Navy, I went to Great Lakes, and during the swimming part of basic training, they handed a sheet of what's required just to enter the SEALs, and I read that, and I couldn't believe what you actually have to do just to be accepted into the program. So I respect the SEALs greatly and highly, so thank you very much for that. Since you looked at me when you said journey and don't use trip, I did look it up. The word journey means the act of traveling from one place to another, especially when involving a considerable distance, a trip. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm sure since you said that or looked at me when you said it, you've heard some of my pushback, especially on the psilocybin. And I visited with, at the lobbyist request, with a psychoanalyst. She called it a trip with psilocybin. And here's my main concern. I told her that, and I've been telling everybody. It goes back to the marijuana. I want people healed, whatever it takes. This is a plant. Marijuana is a plant. Psilocybin's a mushroom. They're natural things. Awesome. But it doesn't stay there in the medical, just like marijuana. We're now selling it on the street corners. And that was my concern with psilocybin and mushrooms. And it's also my concern with this too. And ibogaine's even way more powerful than psilocybin. And what you explained, the whole process of somebody that's going what they go through, is quite incredible. You even used the word religious, I believe you said, or spiritual. You used the word spiritual. When I visited with the psychoanalyst about psilocybin, she called it a psycho-religious experience. I've got great concerns. I've been a pastor. I want people healed. I'm not against healing in any way, especially our veterans. So I just want you to know that, but it's some of these other things. Are you familiar with IASIS?
I am not, sir.
Okay, so it's a microcurrent neurofeedback. It's not. There's no drugs with it. It's been out for 15 years. I don't know if anybody else in here maybe can speak to it too, but I've talked to a doctor that's used it. They've had great success. Like I said, it's been on the market for 15 years. My preference would be look for other things. You said you haven't seen anything else on the market that has actually helped. So I would like to see all the data that you have, how many people. I even asked this psychoanalyst that she actually was using psilocybin in trials, and I said, do you have data? Can you tell me how many people are actually being helped? Is it 100%? Is it 80%, 50%, 20%? She didn't have any. And this has been my problem with some of this stuff. I want to see some solid data. I have talked to the pilot back here personally. I've talked to some others with their personal experience. But if we're gonna approve this, what data do we have, and how many people are actually healed that don't have to go back to using this on a regular basis, and every other data that you have, everything else that's on the market and the success it has versus this ibogaine. So any of that information you can give to me or to the committee, I would surely appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir. Actually, I appreciate that disposition. I am right in line with you on many ways. And I was just shifting my eyes. I just happened to land on you when I said journey, not trip. Part of the reason I utilize that vernacular is because trip has been pejoratized by the abuse that we've seen since the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay? LSD, so my dad was a lawyer. And so I grew up in the back of a courtroom in a powder blue leisure seat watching him prosecute somebody for trafficking LSD. It was wrong.
Yeah.
That's where I come from. Pretty conservative. And to hear this, I think our worldviews would align too. And when I see this, number one, it's safe. That's the first question the FDA wants to know. From the Nolan-Williams studies, which we can't do in the U.S. because it has been classified as Class 1, we have not been able to get the studies done. And they created that classification without studying. They just grouped psychedelics together and given an imprimatur and set it aside. What we're trying to do is take a reasonable look at this. We have initial data that shows all that, and there is data on psilocybin as well as MDMA for treating PTSD. So is it safe? That's the first question. I think we have that answered, especially with the Nolan-Williams study. Number two is the other compounds. It's coming, but we can't get it without something. I think this is the people's vote to let's look at this, because if you just leave it in the hands of companies, they might not be altogether motivated.
Yeah. Well, I do know it's a powerful psychedelic hallucinogenic. That's for sure. And there are religious groups in Africa that use it in their religious ceremonies. So I've got major concerns,
Yeah.
and I'm going to express them. And I just want to really explore this before I would vote for something like this and see some solid data.
I'm there. I would happily avail myself and work on that with you.
Yeah.
I'm easy to find. Walt Disney therapist.
Why didn't you name your clinic like the Disney clinic?
So actually, Disney Family Therapy is my business.
Is it really?
It is.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
I didn't get money or tickets, so I had to use that. So,
Thanks
yeah.
for your testimony. I
Absolutely. Anything else?
Now I need to ask for forgiveness. I should have been more cognizant of the time. We have a hard stop at 10 a.m. How many witnesses are here in favor? And let's just say favor or against. So keep all of it. 1, 2, 3, 8, 4. And any against? Okay. I'm going to ask, ma'am, if you would allow me to ask this man to come up so we get the opposing side, and then we're going to go back to the other. We had 6, I think, so we can go probably about 2 minutes for each. And I'm sorry to now cut short the time, but we had some great testimony first. So, sir, if you would come up, and then, ma'am, you'll be next if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dr. David Coleman. I'm a neurologist, sleep specialist. I'm not, first of all, I've never even heard of it. I was just here for White Coat Day. I'm not representing the Missouri State Medical Association, but that's why I'm here. Yeah, so I'm with the Missouri State Medical Association, but I am testifying independently of that. I was just here listening, and the thing that I think I certainly want to help veterans. They've done so much for our country, and however we can. So that's not the concern. My concern is that this would create a fund from the Department of Health and Senior Services. You know, I'm from Bothwell Regional Health Center in Sedalia, Missouri. Our hospital is struggling. The things that the Department of Health and Senior Services fund are things for rural communities, for community. It's the problem here is not so much that I do think we should continue to look into ibogaine. My problem is that there's only so much funding. And is this the place where we want to be putting, I forget the number that we said, but it seemed pretty substantial. My hospital is really struggling. And I think that maybe at this time in Missouri, this is not the time for us to be putting that much money into something that's experimental.
Any questions for the witness?
was just going to say, I think it's 30 million. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Senator? 30 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your testimony.
First year is, I believe, $6 million.
The next one in favor, we'll make this a little quicker. Next one in favor, come on, let's start stacking both sides. Ma'am, if you will, state your name and proceed.
Okay. My name is Elaine Brewer. I'm a military spouse, and I work in trauma-informed mental health care with military veterans and first responders, acting as a certified psychedelic integration coach with the Heroic Hearts Project. So today I am here to speak on what research is showing us about how and why ibogaine is so effective. Ibogaine is demonstrating powerful potential in treating complex trauma, addiction, and brain injury. Preliminary studies, early clinical data, and brain imaging research suggests that ibogaine appears to act across multiple brain systems at once: habit-forming networks, serotonin and dopamine pathways, trauma processing, emotional regulation centers, as well as systems involved in memory, cognition, and neural growth, which is why it is shown to show such extraordinary outcomes after just one treatment. Ibogaine, should I stop? Okay. Ibogaine acts on serotonin and dopamine receptors, the systems that regulate reward, craving, motivation, and drive compulsive behavior. These are the very circuits that keep people trapped. In clinical settings, ibogaine has been shown to significantly reduce and interrupt entrenched addiction patterns, creating what many describe as their first true break in the addiction cycle. This offers a critical window of opportunity to rebuild habits, create relapse prevention plans, and pursue lasting recovery. Ibogaine also impacts the default mode network. This is a part of the brain that controls automatic behaviors. It is responsible for self-reflection, memory collection, social cognition, and emotional processing. When this network becomes overactive and rigid, we see rumination, shame, anxiety, depression, and the constant replaying of traumatic events.
And ma'am,
Yes.
I'm sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Wrap up, if you will, and then you can submit that if you would like to
Yes.
take a look at it.
What we're trying to portray here is that ibogaine can work across these multiple brain systems. It is helping relief in more than one places. This is why it's helping with anxiety, depression, brain injury, all of these things. And I think we want the research too. That's why we're here. We're asking for that CLAD data that we can use. And this won't just help veterans, it can help citizens across the board with these things that we have not had. You know, our only form of treatment is the current pharmaceutical model. We need to start looking at something else.
Thank you very much. And next one, 4 on this side, and sir, if you would, go ahead, proceed.
I'll submit this and try to summarize it in 2 minutes. My name is Michael Delaney, and I served as a Kansas City, Missouri police officer for about 16 years. 10 of those years were on the SWAT team, and 8 of those were in the elite SWAT team in narcotics. On a weekly basis, arrested Kansas City's most violent felons. Served over 600 high-risk search warrants and cooperated with the feds on all kinds of investigations. In 2018, I was one of 3 officers shot in the arrest of a homicide suspect. Shortly after that, I developed severe PTSD and
Sir,
addiction.
if I can interrupt you just for a second, we've just gotten word that we're going to be able to go past the 10 o'clock hour now. So if you're here for an emerging issues, it's going to be next door. So we'll give you time to relocate. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
And ma'am,
No.
who was-
Okay.
if you want more time after the other witnesses to come up, we'll let you finish yours.
Sit next to Lena.
That be okay? Yeah. As soon as the doors close, we'll get back to you.
Yes, sir. Should I start over or just? Okay. Okay.
Drew? Yeah, he's got it. He's got them. If you're coming in for the Emerging Issues Committee, they're going to be next door. Thank you. Thank you for letting us interrupt you. You may proceed. And we're going to lift that 2-minute time limit.
Would you like me to start over or just kind of take off where I left off?
I'd say just start where you left off. That'd be great. Mentioned you had PTSD.
Correct. The day I was shot profoundly affected my self-confidence as well as my trust and faith in myself to be the man I once was. I had been a high-performing, driven, accountable family man who consistently put others first. 4 years after medical retirement, despite multiple treatment modalities and countless hours of high-quality, gold standard one-on-one therapy, I continued to struggle with relapses, persistent anger, and limited patience. I lacked faith in myself not only as a professional, but also as a husband and a father. In late 2024, I relapsed again. This time I was also experiencing intense suicidal thoughts. Frightened by the severity of these feelings and believing suicide was my only remaining option, I checked into a detox center in January of 25 to create space and ensure my safety while sobering up. Despite doing everything that was asked of me clinically, attending therapy, engaging in recommended treatments, and repeatedly trying to regain stability and sobriety, I continued to deteriorate. Traditional options helped me endure daily life, but no longer moved me forward. By early 2025, it was clear I needed an intervention capable of addressing the depth and complexity of what years of exposure to trauma had created. The realization is what ultimately led me to consider ibogaine as a last evidence-informed option when all others had failed to produce lasting change. In March 2025, I traveled to Ambio Life Sciences in Mexico to undergo ibogaine treatment. Following that treatment, I experienced a restored sense of faith in myself. In some ways, I am now a better person than I was before beginning my law enforcement career. Looking back, I am struck by the amount of accumulated trauma and PTSD symptoms that had developed over the course of my career, even before being shot. For the first time in 7 years, I feel firmly grounded again. My primary focus is now being the best husband and father I can be. I can also envision a future in which I am successful in a new career, just as I was in law enforcement. This brings me to the primary reason I am here today. I believe this treatment should be legally available in the United States. First responders willingly put themselves in harm's way to protect and serve communities. Unfortunately, there are consequences to that service. The experience I had as a law enforcement officer changed me in ways I did not anticipate and was not equipped to manage. By the time I was diagnosed with PTSD, my symptoms had become so severe and deeply ingrained that medical retirement was the only viable option to preserve any meaningful quality of life for me. After my experience with ibogaine and the results I have seen, I believe this treatment has potential to save careers. I often wonder whether access to this treatment early in my diagnosis might have preserved the career I loved and fully expected to pursue for 32 years. Serving as a police officer and impacting lives in that capacity was a humbling and deeply meaningful experience that ended far sooner than I ever imagined. We do not prioritize the mental health of the men and women who protect us nearly enough. This treatment represents a meaningful step in that right direction. It has the potential to help first responders return to the people they were before careers changed them. The benefits of this extend far beyond the individual. Fewer broken families and divorces would have a generational impact. Reductions in addiction among officers would likewise affect generations. I believe we would see a decline in police officer suicides, which again carries generational consequences. There are also operational benefits. Retention in officers would improve. It costs agencies more than $100,000 to fully train a police officer. Increasing retention rates provide an immediate financial benefit to departments while preserving the experience and high-performing officers that remain committed to serving the communities at a high level. Communities would benefit as well. Healthier, more empathetic officers foster stronger relationships between agencies and the citizens they serve. With more mentally healthy officers on the streets, we would likely see fewer high-liability, highly damaging, headline-grabbing incidents between officers and citizens. Over the past 6 years, we all witnessed the profound societal impact of such incidents. I could provide much more detail about this treatment and how it could benefit communities, agencies, and first responders and their families. Today, however, I'm here to speak to the high-level impact. I firmly support efforts to pursue FDA approval and to legalize ibogaine as a treatment option in the United States. It's important to recognize why new approaches are needed to treat PTSD. Conventional treatment methods can help many people, but they are far from universally effective. Many veterans, as well as first responders like myself, don't gain a higher quality of life improvement from the current available PTSD treatments. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your testimony. Would you tell us your name once again, please?
Michael Delaney.
Michael Selane, would you spell
Delaney.
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 Right. I misheard that. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the witness? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Ma'am, if you'll take his place. Okay, very good. When you're ready. Again.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name's Alina Love. I am a firefighter in Boone County, and I am here to speak to you directly, honestly, and from my own personal experience. What Walt Disney laid out for you was very accurate, and how a treatment is basically done. So thank you, Walt. That was really good. So I will continue with my own personal experience here. Veterans and first responders are exposed to trauma over and over again. Over time, that changes the nervous system. It increases the risk of anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, and suicide. That is not a weakness. This is biology. In fire service, stigma keeps many from asking for help. An IAFF mental health survey found that 81% of firefighters fear being seen as weak or unfit for duty if they seek support. Most do not use their department's employee assistant programs, and nearly 2/3 of those who do say it did not help. For 13 years, I followed the recommended path: therapy, treatments, antidepressants, dosage increases, medication changes. At one point, I was more suicidal on antidepressants than before even taking them. I was eventually diagnosed with anxiety, complex PTSD, ADHD, and treatment-resistant depression. I experienced panic attacks, severe enough that I had to leave the room just to regulate my own breathing. I worked relentlessly to heal, but my nervous system never truly stabilized. Last summer, ibogaine came into my life. I spent months researching the pharmacology, the cardiac risks, and the safety protocols. Before being accepted at a medical facility in Canada, I completed full blood work and an EKG here in Missouri to be received by a physician there for clearance. Testings were repeated there on site just to clear me again to make sure everything is accurate. I had is a salt form. It absorbs better in the body, and it's a standard oral capsule form used in clinical setting. I received a small dose first while my heart was monitored. 45 minutes later, after no complications, I received the full flood dose, adjusted gradually based on my metabolism. The visuals were present, clear, and almost like a lucid dream, but they were not the main event. I want to make that clear. It felt secondary while something deeper was unfolding in my brain and my body beneath the surface. I felt like my brain and body were being worked on the background, and if I focused on that, I could feel it. And the visions were more like entertainment, like a TV screen to watch my life regression. What stood out most is the clarity. I could see events from my life without the overwhelming emotional charge that's attached to them. I remained aware the entire time. I could open my eyes, I could speak. I felt physically unsteady at times with a little bit of nausea, but I never felt out of control. It was challenging, but it was manageable. Within days, the changes were absolutely undeniable. My PTS symptoms resolved completely. Influence split-second decisions. That can mean life or death. I have personally arrived on countless overdose scenes and performed chest compressions on individuals who did not survive. I have watched families collapse from grief from the fallout of addiction. Ibogaine is one of the most powerful addiction interrupters currently observed. It is uniquely interacts with opiate receptors, significantly reducing withdrawals and addressing neurological patterns underneath the addiction. We don't have anything like this right now. And I will say something that may be uncomfortable for some to hear. Ibogaine may be challenged because it does not fit neatly into the traditional pharmaceutical profit model. It is often one-time, a short-course treatment with durable results. I am concerned that without transparent, state-supported research, financial interests could prioritize synthetic analogs over fully understanding original natural compound. If this is about veterans, first responders, and those who have lost hope, then let it truly be about us. No profit margins. With respect, that system has already failed many of us and our friends who are no longer here. Veterans are living with PTSD layered on top of traumatic brain injuries. First responders carry cumulative trauma quietly because stigma keeps them silent. Suicide rates remain deeply concerning. If a compound has the potential to restore neurological stability and address addiction in its root, then we have the moral obligation to study it. My name is Alina. I am not speaking theoretically here. I carried trauma for over a decade. I followed the system exactly as designed, and it did not heal me. Ibogaine did. Nothing can even come close. No, it's not for everybody, but for many, it gave a lot of hope. This bill is about research. This is a multi-state initiative that is currently underway. We are not asking for taxpayer money to fund this. We are asking for a small percentage from the Opiate Settlement Fund. Missouri can either watch other states lead or step with courage. And I ask you today to choose courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for your testimony. one question, if you don't have the answer, I'd like to refer to the bill sponsor as far as the limitations on who might be able to take advantage of this program. I know we've been focusing a lot on the veterans in military. Is it opened up to limit to military, or first responders can be included, and even others in the general public? Would they be also have access to the treatments?
I think the sponsor should give a definite answer, but from my perspective, I think priority is the veterans here because of the suicide rates.
Yes.
But along with that, first responders have very high suicide rates.
Right.
And keep in mind, there's critical conditions that people the only option might be life or death, and this could be a potential hope, like Parkinson's.
Right. Senator Bain, can you clarify that? Are we placing limitations on who might be able to take advantage of the
I mean,
treatment?
I think we're looking at definitely veterans, first responders, looking at, I think that's part of the research to see who this will definitely benefit from.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I know in everything that I've heard, whether it be athletes, first responders, veterans, like I said, I think that's part of the research, but, obviously
Very good.
veterans are always a priority.
Thank you. I wanted to also point out when I asked the question about opposition from pharma, they have way too many protections, in my opinion, and so that wasn't one that would cause me irritation if they did oppose, but in any case, I would kind of expect it. In your particular situation, when you had memories during the treatment, were those memories one that you had thought you'd forgotten?
Absolutely. It's not what I expected. I thought my worst nightmares were going to be in front of me, and in fact, it was memories that I suppressed and never dealt with, and that is how it healed me. And I think no amount of talk therapy would have uncovered that. It was something I was never able to talk about, and that's why I went to the root cause of where it all happened.
And then you mentioned your mental capacity. Was that to be interpreted, your mental clarity improved?
Absolutely, yes, sir. I feel like I got a brain transplant, and I never knew how much brain damage I have accumulated until after this experience where I was able to function on another level. And I still am there.
And that treatment was just a month ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your testimony. I did want to point out on page 3 of the bill that the appropriations from the General Assembly, so that is taxpayer dollars that would go to this. So
Thank you so much for that correction.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for your testimony. And if you wouldn't mind, you can leave the written testimony if you want to, but at least the witness form for the committee. Thank you. And when you're ready, go ahead. If there are any other in favor, you can take Elena's seat.
I'll try to stick to 2 minutes anyways, if I can. And so I submit that. My name is Dr. Sean Lillig. Oh, we're not limited. Well, I'll keep it succinct anyway. And so my name is Dr. Sean Lillig. I'm a board-certified physician, a medical doctor, licensed in Missouri and Kansas. I did my training at Truman Medical Center when it was still called Truman in Kansas City, Missouri. I also did training at Children's Mercy and the VA Hospital. I performed over 40,000 patient exams. That's a lot of notes. That's a lot of listening to the heart in private practice. And I'm also been the lead facilitator on phase 1 and 2 FDA clinical research trials involving Schedule I medicines, including psilocybin and 5-MeO-DMT. I've been responsible for psychiatric and medical outcomes, and I hold malpractice insurance. And so this bill is not about deregulation. It's not about recreation. It's about medical research in structured settings with licensed professionals like myself. There are ethical standards. There are defined protocols, okay? And these protocols are similar to other psychiatric treatments with risk-benefit analysis that are similar. We are researching safety and efficacy, for instance, the QTC interval on the heart, Mr. Disney mentioned earlier, and the state of Missouri has some of the finest research institutions in the region. It will eventually draw in medical federal funds for research, but that's not my area. I'm clinical. And so ibogaine has tremendous promise for PTSD, opiate and substance abuse, and treatment-resistant depression. That's anybody who's been at least 2 different options, psychiatric medications for depression previously, especially for suicidality. It's really useful for veterans, first responders, medical personnel particularly, and these diagnoses of PTSD, substance abuse, anxiety, and suicidality are the primary things we want to be addressing for veterans and first responders as it's been previously addressed. They have different mechanisms for approaching trauma and neuroplasticity. They do work on traditional opiate and serotonin receptors, and it improves the recovery process. And for more specific information on recovery rates, that is definitely why we need enhanced research and with large numbers of trials and blinded clinical research studies at professional standards. So overall, it's about medical research, it's about data collection, it's about accountability, it's about helping veterans, okay? It's about helping people in front of you. I've had patients kill themselves. I have multiple patients kill themselves. I treat this on a daily basis, and I here representing myself and medical doctors. I have no financial benefit from this. I do this because it's the right thing to do. There's also a spiritual aspect of it. It's not African voodoo or anything like that. Christians have an experience with Jesus and God, and it's significant in many ways. And so I think there's an emphasis on the safety too much here, and all the medical concerns, and that's what we have IRB protocols for, FDA phase 1 and 2 clearances for, and I have experience in that, and I'd be happy to potentially lead oversight boards in the future to regulating these issues and governing them.
Thank you for your testimony, Doctor. I don't recall seeing a scope of or the time frame of the study. So in your opinion, how long do you think the study would take for good results?
Yeah, I would approximate about 2 years. Okay, for that, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of funding. Okay, so adequate funding and adequate research numbers is the real thing to get statistical significance in a research study. Do we have enough participants, and do they meet the screening criteria? So that takes a certain amount of time to screen in. The research itself is less than 1 day for the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. The monitoring would be less than 24 to 48 hours. With this treatment in particular, it's unique because one treatment can have lifelong recovery rates. Okay, and so yeah, in general, we're looking to study these to get more information. The more numbers, the more in the trial, the higher the significance and accuracy of the test.
It sounds like you might have a large pool to draw from. How many participants would you anticipate taking part?
So I'm not for sure. I haven't gone to the trial design aspect of it, and that's definitely limited by funding. And I'm not familiar with the number, but it's tens of thousands of dollars per trial participant. I've also participated in Alta Sciences, which is funded by USONA and the FDA on the Kansas side for phase 1 and phase 2 research that's privately funded with FDA oversight for similar studies. But I don't have the exact information because it's all private.
Thank you. Any other questions, Senator?
I wanted some clarity on something you said, that this is not African voodoo. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think there's a connotation that I think earlier that it came from Africa, or that it might be a religious practice. I think that was the connotation. I don't believe that it's a religious practice.
Well, there's a fact. They do use this in religious certain religious tribes use this in their religious practices. That's a fact.
Sure.
The second thing is I want clarity on, because you said this is Christians having an experience with God. Is that what?
Yeah. So in the clinical research that's being proposed, that would not have a religious basis at all. And then my experience, as I've done lots of research with FDA guidelines on this as a facilitator, people do part of the healing process about trauma and depression and anxiety. Some of it's spiritual, as you said. You're a pastor, correct?
Yes.
And so I would assume that you believe that too. That spirituality has some aspect on our behavior and our emotions, how we interact in the
Absolutely.
day, and our viewpoint on life. So a lot of times people experience what they view as an experience with God, okay, or they believe that they are having the guidance of it, of that which is ineffable, and that's unique to every person. And so I can't define that And so that's the significance that we're working with, and that's the healing nature of things too. Sure, there's the aspects of the opiate receptor, the serotonin receptor, but it's about integration therapy with counselors and facilitators, getting the whole and understanding the person, their cultural context. And I just didn't want it to seem like it was just a religious practice on a different continent. And these medicines have worldwide use and also have clinical therapy in research settings.
Okay, so people that are taking ibogaine are having spiritual experiences. Is that what you're communicating here? And they're having experiences with God? I thought that was what you said.
I think there might. I'm not specific on what you're asking.
So when they're taking ibogaine, are people having spiritual experiences?
Okay, that helps. Okay, that helps understand. So there's some aspect of their emotional process, their journey, which involves spirituality, and you can't have a process dwelling PTSD, anxiety, depression, panic attack, and suicidality with some aspect of spirituality. In African tribes, they have different religious figures. In Christian backgrounds, it tends to be God and Jesus. Okay, so and then different people from different backgrounds had different views on spirituality and what is important and what they view God as.
Okay. And you think that's okay, taking ibogaine and having a
I think it's okay
experience?
to have different viewpoints on what God is.
No, I'm not. That's not the question. It's taking ibogaine and having a spiritual experience and meeting what they think is God.
I think
Is that okay?
Yeah. So I think what the issue is saying, are we performing research on there? And if they have an experience that's spiritual, is that okay? And I think it is.
Okay.
I think it's okay to have faith and express spirituality, but I don't think this is what the bill is really getting at. I think it's about opiate abuse and addiction and funds for research.
No, that's not what the bill is, but you made comments along that line, and I just needed some clarity of what you're actually saying.
Yeah, and so it's a nuanced area, and it requires highly licensed professionals to talk about. It's very it takes a lot of training to talk about these areas, and they're very sensitive. And it's not a recreational drug; it's a medical treatment.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this: it's not appealing to me or a help that people are having psycho-spiritual experiences by taking this drug.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And
thank you for clarity.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Seeing no other questions, Doctor, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
And if just in case you didn't leave one, please put a.
I left it over there.
Great, thank
Thanks.
you. Any others in favor? Come up and take the doctor's place. When you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tyler Travers, registered lobbyist here today on behalf of the Missouri chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness in support of Senator Bean's legislation here. I want to thank him for sponsoring this. We think that this might just be one potential tool in the toolbox to combat mental illness, so we are supportive of it.
Any questions? Seeing none. Senator, I understand you might have to leave in just a minute or two. Do you have anything you want to say before you go?
Yes, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to have to leave. I just wanted to share something with you real quick. In 1989, I was going through EMT training, and I will never forget being in the service that I was doing what they called ride-outs back then. And I remember what they all talked about. They talked about their depression rates. They talked about the suicide rates. They talked about alcoholism, divorce. I mean, the list went on and on. I can tell you from being there, when there would be a fairly large accident that would come back in, you would see people separate and go. And I think back then, and I've heard all this from Navy SEALs to the veterans that have been part of this program. And that's something that's a big driver in me in looking at these options, because I think back to that service, seeing what they went through, and if this is something that truly could be something that helps in that, I think that is, I'd say it's a big driver of me bringing this bill, and I think it's something that we need to take a serious look at. So,
well, thank you. As soon as he leaves, we can create a committee substitute and do whatever we want. Oh, he's still here. Never mind. Yeah. Okay. And are you the last witness?
I don't know.
We have another one? Okay. Well, go ahead and finish up
I
your
just
testimony.
wanted to finish off so you can get the full scope of what we're consistently seeing after an ibogaine treatment. I think I left off at the impact of the default mode network, and that when that network becomes overactive and rigid, that's where we see rumination, shame, anxiety, depression, and the constant replaying of traumatic events. Emerging evidence suggests that ibogaine can disrupt that rigidity, allowing the brain to disengage negative thought loops and ingrained behavioral patterns. Research further indicates that ibogaine promotes neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections. Preclinical studies show an increase in growth factors associated with neural repair. That is significantly important for individuals whose brains have been damaged by chronic stress, blast exposure, head injury, trauma, and substance use. Many people who go through ibogaine describe what they call as a life review. They revisit pivotal moments, places where trauma has left its imprint, but under the medicine, they are not reliving it as a person trapped inside the experience. They are able to take a step back and witness it, to observe it. And from that vantage point, something powerful happens. They're able to start recognizing their coping strategies they adopted to survive. The hypervigilance, disassociation, aggression, and isolation. They see those as patterns, not as character flaws, but as intelligent survival responses formed in trauma. After ibogaine treatment, we consistently see an increase in psychological flexibility that is necessary for creating lasting behavioral change. Over and over again, participants describe feeling fundamentally renewed or restored. This is what sets ibogaine apart. It appears to target root causes rather than the current pharmaceutical model that focuses primarily on symptom management. Ibogaine research has the potential to revolutionize how we treat addiction and mental health in this country. And that's it. Thank you guys for your time.
Very good. Thank you for being patient with us.
No, thank you for allowing
You're
me to
welcome.
finish.
And Mr. Dienoff, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Arnie C., A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate, and I'm in favor of this Senate bill. I did submit testimony on all three bills. Hopefully you received it this morning. If this study works and it's effective, I think that there needs to be relief to these patients who are experiencing this anguish and this unbelievable mental health crisis. My only concern is we have to cut $2 billion from the fiscal year budget between now and fiscal year 2028. But for each year, there are great, significant money, dollar amounts. Over $61 million is the fiscal note fully implemented. Next year, fiscal year 2027 is $7 million. Fiscal year 28 is $16 million, and 29 is another $16 million. My question is where are we going to prioritize and how are we going to cut other parts of the budget to ascertain appropriations to make this study work? There's 5 full-time FTEs, full-time employees, and that's where a lot of the budget's going to go, in addition to the study concepts. But overall, I think it's a good study. It's a good study. It's a good piece of legislation. But I think there needs to be some accountability of how we're going to cut the budget to pay for the $61 million in anticipated expenses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. And I don't see. The question that I had is, yes, I knew it was there somewhere. This is subject to appropriation. So I know we're having some shortfalls in the budget, and hopefully this can take a priority position on some of those things.
I'd like to cut a lot more waste. I think this should be a top priority.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any witnesses just for information today? And I'm going to call out, since we attempted to cut it short, any others in favor? Any opposed? No more information. Thank you all for your patience today. That ends the hearing for Senate Bill 1581, and with no other business coming before the committee, we are adjourned.